This holiday season, we're getting drunk.
Whee!
Join Emily and Flo as they drink their way through December with a different festive genre each week as voted for by you. Action.
Cha-cha.
Horror.
Ooh.
Classic.
What is eggnog?
Children.
Never really had a glass of milk anymore.
And never seen before.
I've never seen Die Hard.
So grab a sherry and a mince pie and join in the fun. Why This Film's Drunk Christmas starts December the 1st.
But I think that's a part of growing up. You get like these cartoons put immeasurable guilt on you about stuff you can't control, and you just live with it, and that's life. Merry Christmas. Hello and welcome back to Why This Film, the podcast where we reach back into your childhood, pluck out a movie, give it a rewatch and have a chat about it. I'm Emily Slade and welcome back. You watched it so many times before and now you're gonna watch it again. But it's been so many years since you last saw it, and now you show it to your friends, and they're like, "What?
What am I watching?
Why?
What is this?
Why this film?" And I'm joined today by Elwood Jones from the Asian Cinema Film Club, amongst many others. Hello!
Hello! Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, you're welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. I'm very excited. Your chosen movie is 1995's Mortal Kombat. The IMDb breakdown. 3 unknowing martial artists are summoned to a mysterious island to compete in a tournament whose outcome will decide the fate of the world. Why this film?
Wow, this Mortal Kombat is such a huge part, not only of my childhood, but it crosses over so much from tapping into things I loved in sort of the film world and also just as a video game player. Mortal Kombat touches on so many aspects of my life, and it's one of those things that I sort of carried through from childhood, much like Godzilla movies, and somehow managed to work into different aspects of my career. But no, Mortal Kombat, when it came out to me, it was like the sleepover movie of choice. It tapped into all those areas that you want for a sleepover movie. I mean, it's fast-paced, it's got loads of action, there's a healthy amount of violence, but at the same time, nothing to get your parents too antsy if you've got, like, sort of parents who care about age ratings and things. You've got fantasy elements, and you've got kung fu, and it just taps into all these different sort of genres and things that just appeal to you when you're a kid, and it just made it, no matter how many times you've seen it, if somebody was having a sleepover and they were sort of like, we should watch Mortal Kombat, it was like there was no question of any other movie being put on. It was sort of like, it's Mortal Kombat time. Yeah, even now you mentioned Mortal Kombat and people just, you can tell the 90s kids who just like grew up with this movie, they're just like, they'll either be like super amped to talk about it, or you will be greeted with the deep voice growl of Mortal Kombat, and then followed by some like some nonsense going on. Even now, just mentioning the word Mortal Kombat just makes you want to say it in that sort of techno tone. So,
yeah, I can totally see that. It's you're perfectly right. It's such a popcorn sleepover movie. I'd never ever seen it before. I sort of knew of its existence, but I'd never sort of come across it at all. It was such a pleasure to watch. Like, I cannot tell you what the plot is if you paid me, but I had a very good time watching it, and I think I messaged a bunch of people like, we have to get drunk and watch this movie.
I'm so glad, because I always hope that people still like it. I mean, obviously there's a lot of movies that you grow up with and you have nostalgia with it, and it gives films sort of that unfair advantage. Like, there's people who grew up with the Goonies who love the Goonies, and then there's people who watch it now and they're like, what's the fuss with this movie? This isn't good. And to hear somebody come to Mortal Kombat now and still enjoy it, like all these years later, it's just a delight to hear. So yeah,
I was genuinely surprised. I really was. I was like, okay, let's watch Mortal Kombat. Like, I'm interested to see sort of what it is. I've not seen many movies from video games, and this sort of seems to have, with my very vague awareness of it, a sort of cult following. Like, I feel like it's one of those ones that does badly on Rotten Tomatoes with the critics and well with the audience, that sort of vibe. So I was like, I'm sure it'll be fun. Now, this is coming from someone who came to The Matrix 15 years too late, but I was thinking it's visually as good. Like, initially I was watching it and I was like, this is giving me Matrix vibes, where, you know, I came to The Matrix way after I'd seen The Matrix in everything else, you know what I mean? It was no longer original, but it's still obviously visually stunning, and it's very cool in that way. And this was it. And I was watching this movie and I was like, what is it? What am I trying to call this movie? And please try and understand where I'm going with this. It's not beautiful. It's not a beautiful movie, but it's a hot movie. Like, it's a real pleasure for my eyes. It's like, yes, I'm enjoying watching this. And it's, you know, moments of it, obviously, where it's set is beautiful, but that's just the scenery. The way it's crafted and the use of lighting and all of the different set pieces, it's like hot. It's like, oh yeah, this could be on the front of a magazine and that'd be cool.
Oh, definitely. This movie is real junk food for the soul. I mean, it's not designed to please critics and like win awards. This is a movie that just knows what it is. Even when you sort of like dive deeper into it and you realize that basically it's just Enter the Dragon, but with, you know, added mutants and supernatural and magic and all these other bits and pieces that they sort of add in just to give it that, to put that sort of distance in, and it really sort of taps into what Mortal Kombat is. And especially when you compare to like the other video game movies at the time, you had like Super Mario Brothers and you had Street Fighter. And Jean-Claude Van Damme is who Johnny Cage's character was originally based on. He did a movie called Bloodsport, which again is another underground tournament fighter. Really fantastic movie if you've not seen it. It features Jean-Claude Van Damme in his prime. Also features him going up against Bolo Young, who is in like complete beast mode. And basically, the makers of the Mortal Kombat saw this, and it was like, we could really turn this into like a video game here. And they approached Jean-Claude Van Damme and said, you know, we want to make a video game about you, and he'd like turned it down. And years later, when they were like coming to do the film, they like approached him again, but he decided to go off and make Street Fighter and have an affair with Kylie Minogue. And you know, history speaks for itself. I mean, Street Fighter has its fans, but it is no Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I genuinely have no interest in Street Fighter because from my limited understanding, Mortal Kombat, first of all, I never know how respectful it's being, but I love an East-West hybrid where they bring elements of both cultures into a movie, and I'm like, probably not okay, but like, for some reason I really dig it. And the fantasy elements where like the different weird characters and a guy shoots like a pterodactyl snake out of his hand, and like they go to like a hell and invent Ghost Rider and blow him up, and I'm like, what the fuck, is it so good? It's so much fun. Can we talk about that character? I no idea what his name is.
Okay.
He's like if the Scorpion King and early Thanos had a child.
Yep. Well, his name is actually Scorpion.
No way.
He's called Scorpion. He's the yellow ninja, and the blue ninja is called Sub-Zero.
No. I mean like it's the guy that's like, he literally looks like early Thanos and bad Scorpion King from the Mummy
Oh, we talk about Goro.
Like,
yes,
yeah, the guy with like all the arms.
Yeah, Goro is the prince of the underworld, and he's the general of the otherworld armies.
Okay,
and hence why we
sense.
have the wonderful scene of him and Kano, who's the guy with the metal face mask. And they have that conversation of sort of like, where he's sort of like, underworld is like, that doesn't mean underground, and he's like, yes, something like that. I'm going to apologize because I could just quote this movie at will at this point. It's all like, but
never apologize for being able to quote a movie. It's a lifestyle.
yeah, Goro, he's obviously a big animatronic puppet. He cost over $1 million to make and required about 22 puppet operators and constantly broke down.
Wow.
But it gives the film such lastability and the presence that character needs. Because when you look at a character like Reptile, who's in that 90s CGI, which has not aged well, much like the Lawnmower Man, I think the fact that Goro being such a central big character and the fact that they spent the money to make him animatronic really sort of pays off. And you have that scene where he goes up against Johnny Cage, when he's interacting with like Kano, and actors just respond so much better if it's a practical effect. It's not like you're having to talk to like a tennis ball and a stick or something. And say, yes, there's going to be a giant robot here, and go to this spot.
Definitely. Yeah. Be scared now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. If that was coming towards me in a fighting ring, I would genuinely be frightened. Like, it really does. He's like really great looking, and you can tell he's there, and you can tell he's touching you and like picking you up and stuff. And like, that's really, really cool. You're right. And everything, there's a lot of that in this movie, a lot of real practical effects where they can, and it means that when they do have to use CGI, it's not so awful because they use it quite sparingly and for quite clever things. Like, it's like, we'll use it for like lightning, so like that kind of makes sense. So then it's, it looks a bit weird, but it's fine because it's lightning. But for this bit, we're gonna go like Cronenberg all over the place. It was really cool.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think when it came to the script, the script itself, when it was first made, it was a lot more straight-laced. And thanks to, like, Hal Ashby, who plays Johnny Cage, and Christopher Lambert basically ad-libbing, they put a bunch of jokes into the scene. Like, the scene where Johnny Cash's sunglasses get broken, he's sort of like, those were, like, $1,000 sunglasses, asshole. That wasn't in the script. That was completely ad-libbed. But now it's, like, everyone's favourite line in the movie.
It's iconic. Yeah, I did wonder. It's so fresh. All the little like jokes, and it keeps you really entertained. And it levels out the sort of serious. If it tried to take itself too seriously, I don't think it would be as enjoyable. So I think it was a really smart move of them to keep those in.
Definitely so. And the fact that Christopher Lambert here, who is playing once again a character, he's almost like horribly miscast, but it works. Like we saw him in Highlander.
Yeah.
Because in the video games, Raiden is a Chinese thunder god, and originally they'd approached I can't remember his name now. From Saw and Lethal Weapon, Danny Glover.
Right,
and they couldn't get him, and they decided that they were going to. They tried to approach Sean Connery, but he was too busy playing golf. Because he was at that stage of his career.
It's like, no thanks.
And they basically to approach Christopher Lambert, and he just absolutely knocks it out of the park. It's hard now to look at that character and not feel that like Christopher Lambert just like absolutely nailing this particular personification of the character.
Yeah. It's so bizarre, and it did feel wrong, and this is coming from someone who knows nothing about anything, but we're in sort of Thailand, and they're like, all these monks or whatever are like, it's our god, and this like white dude shows up with this weird American European accent where he's clearly, it's like transatlantic, where he's clearly spent some time in like Europe, but he's also American, but he's kind of British. It's really bizarre voice that he's got. And his character as well goes from being like sort of like early James Woods' Hades, where it's like, I'm threatening and I'm big, and I'm like, but I'm sort of like the wise man to take you through this journey, but I'll like practically wink at the camera like a lot. And say sorry a lot when he like gets super into something, which I thought was really sweet, because you could so easily have a god, especially a weather god, come down and just be like kind of standoffish and just sort of be like, learn your lessons, kids, okay, see ya. But for him to be like, he kicks Gobbo, or whatever his name is, in the balls, and this thunder god is like, yeah, sorry. And you're like, oh my god, what is this?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, it does bring it back to the point you make about obviously like the blending of West and Eastern cultures. This goes like back from like the game, where the guys who made it, I mean, they were big like kung fu cinema fans, and they drew inspiration from things like the Baby Cart and Peril movies, which is where Raiden's whole look comes from. It also takes inspiration from John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China, with the three storms. Just the whole look is just basically based on those two characters, and I think, as I said, it's done in such a respectful way, because it's one thing to obviously blend the two cultures, but when you're doing it from a very sort of like pop cultural stance, but in the same way there's a sense of respect about what you're doing, I think it's a very different thing than if you're like taking this culture and using it for sort of like comical effect and like going, oh, aren't they so backwards over in the East and that. And it's with the Mortal Kombat films, and then certainly with this film, it never feels like that. It's sort of like, oh, we're going to borrow these elements of mysticism and these ideas, and it just sort of adds this other level.
Like we're bringing the Americans to this world, and as such they're going to have to adhere by its rules and stuff. We're not trying to force stereotypes into America. We're coming to their territory, so we're gonna follow their rules, as it were.
Definitely so.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely so. And it's while this is supposed to be taking place on sort of like a Earth realm, it's got this otherworldliness about it when we see like Shang Tsung's palace, and you see like even Dusty Island, and even when we have like the boat ride and we're going over on like the Junker, and you've got like the mystical ghosts that are coming around, and you've got Shang Tsung doing like his call to power to the otherworldly elements and things. You get this feeling that you're on Earth, but you're not quite on Earth at the same time. You're in this sort of like in between battleground.
That sort of like New Zealand vibe. Whenever they have to shoot a fantasy and they go to New Zealand, it's that sort of realm where it's sort of like, we know we are technically on Earth, but we're clearly in some sort of like mushroom ring on Earth, because it's just a little bit ethereal or whatever, and mysterious.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think it's what's this sort of like attention to detail which really sort of helped the film. And this film as well is also the start of so many of like the trademarks that we've seen through Paul W.S. Anderson's career. And I mean, he's one of these directors is sort of very easily dismissed as just being the guy who did all those Resident Evil movies, but throughout his filmography, there's some very interesting work in terms of like cinematography, in terms of how he tells his stories. And the producers of this film, they brought him on. They've seen his first film, Shopping, which is a London set movie about ram raiders. It stars Jude Law and his former first wife, Sadie, at the height of like a 90s sort of glam. And they basically brought him across, and he had no idea about special effects or working on this sort of budget. And he basically said that he went to like the bookstore, bought every book he could get on like CGI and like matte paintings, and just like taught himself this so that when he was speaking to these guys, he was sort of like coming off as less of an idiot.
Oh,
and I mean, this film is 4 years before The Matrix, and it uses waifu techniques, which obviously The Matrix incorporated with their bullet time.
Oh, that's so interesting. Of course it's pre-Matrix. I didn't even, when you're just like, oh yes, The Matrix came out in 1900 and like everything has been doing it since then. But of course, this is 5 fucking years before.
Oh yeah, and
4 or 5 years.
I mean, waifu techniques have been done for years in Hong Kong cinema. When you look at like so much like wuxia movies and things such as like Iron Monkey. This idea of like having actors fly through the air and doing like impossible stunts using wire work had never really been seen in the States before, and it was sort of like the Wachowskis who brought it across and really popularized it with The Matrix. But yes, certainly the wire work here, it's not to the same sort of fantastical extremes, but it certainly adds those elements, such as like when you have like a character run up a wall and do a backflip, those sorts of elements.
Yeah, it's decent. It's decent, and it's good that they don't overuse it, and it's not the only fighting technique they have. The fights are really good because they're all different. It's like really early Buffy. They're all really interesting, and they're thought out, and they use their surroundings really well. And I really loved how, like, when Sonya's got that douchebag between her thighs, well, like her knees, really, but like you know, she's now covered in dirt, she's sweating, they're both sweating, and he's like spitting involuntary, like without, like, just like spit is just coming out of his mouth because he's like can't breathe, just like onto her leg. And it's so simple, but I was just like, that's really happening. Like, people are actually fighting and they're getting tired and he's getting hurt, and like these these images of these human things of sweat and spit and mud and stuff are just really, really cool to see, because I honestly thought it was going to be very sort of polished and sort of Phantom Menace fighting where everything's very choreographed, but it felt really rough and ready and real, and that was really, really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, even like the non-trained martial arts members of the cast, I mean, such as like Bridget Wilson, who you mentioned already as Sonya, she actually took over from Cameron Diaz, who was originally going to play the role and broke her wrist during pre-production. So
how, can you imagine you'd be like, fuck. Like, that's because I assume by this point Cameron Diaz had only really done The Mask, so it wasn't like she had work coming in all over the place, you know. I mean, she was hot and everything, but she hadn't established herself as an actor really just yet.
No, they were...
And so she had a job lined up, and then to break your wrist in the, like, training bit beforehand, you'd just be like, oh, I'm so annoyed with myself.
Yeah, definitely so.
I mean, she got over it. Her career recovered fine, but, like, yeah.
I mean, Bridget Wilson, I mean, she's that sort of one of those 90s sort of pin-ups, really. I mean, she did this, she did Billy Madison. So while we obviously she might not be like the most recognizable member of the cast, in the 90s she had that sort of name to her. Whereas a lot of the other cast are sort of like TV actors or the unknowns, but you come away not feeling that these people are bigger.
I found that, yeah, exactly. I found that really cool. I liked that I didn't quite know who everybody was, and it wasn't even like they were giving me elements of other actors. Like, I could see that Cameron Diaz could have been put in that role, but it would have been different. It would have been a different role because she's too perky for how grounded this actress made that character, who I was obviously paying very close attention to, because I was like, this movie is inevitably going to be sexist. I feel it. And you know what? It kind of wasn't. Like, I was genuinely surprised with how ungratuitously sexist it was. I mean, you had your fucking, like, shit baiting with your, like, oh, yeah, you're a girl, so I'm gonna, like, talk to you like this.
Yeah.
But then she crushes his head between her knees, and I was, like, over it. I was like, He came out, and I was like, kill him. And then she did, and I was like, cool. Done. Sorted.
I love the bit with Sonya. I mean, she's always been like in the game. I mean, the game, she's like the only female character in the original game, but she's like the tough chick, and she's introduced as such in the game. I mean, she's introduced wielding the shotgun in the nightclub. She's leading this military special forces, and she's the one barking orders and shooting guys through glass and stuff. And as you said, when she gets onto the island, she does her own fighting. I mean, yes, Johnny Cage is the sexist arsehole, but that's his character. Because he's, you know...
Yeah, and he wasn't even that bad. I was mainly talking about the, like, Iron Mask face.
Oh, with Kano. Yeah, because Kano's...
To fight her.
Because Kano's her rival. Because he's responsible for killing her partner. Hence why you have all these like, lots of taunts about where he brings the knife in and he plays a lot of mind games. And his performance here, because he was played by Trevor Goddard, who played him as an Australian. Now, in the game, he's a Japanese-American, but the fans loved his performance so much that now every time Kano's turned up in the games, he's now Australian.
Oh, wow, that's so good to be so influential.
I mean, I never liked Kano in the games until I saw the film, and then suddenly he became like my favourite character in the game, just like...
That's so funny. No, I really like that, because so often it's the, like, man, they're out for revenge because the girlfriend got killed. And here it's like, nah, the boyfriend got killed and she's out for revenge. And she, as I say, you have your sort of 90s banter from everyone, whether you're a villain calling her feisty and sexy, or whether you're the, like, main character who's going to hook up with her later, call it, like, having the sort of shit banter or whatever. But it really wasn't that harmful. She managed to play the character in such a way that she held her own and she stood her ground, and it felt real. Everything felt genuinely real, which is a testament in a movie where, like, a massive CGI rock monster comes out of a mountain at the end or whatever. Like, you know, she really did a good job to not fall into such a stereotype. And like, I was so glad. It really added to my enjoyment, because I was so worried that she was just going to be, you know, and some people may watch it and be unsatisfied with it, but you sort of have to take it with a pinch of salt. But I really didn't have to put that much salt on it, which I was really pleasantly surprised about. She really was pretty good. She was never... and then I thought they'd ruined it, where she gets kidnapped at the end, obviously, which again, I kind of wasn't too bummed about, because I was like... she's completed her, like, side quest, and the other two, like, haven't yet, so it makes sense for her to be kidnapped, because they still need to complete their quests, but she's done hers, so it's kind of fine. And then when we see her again, she's got this, like, 80s hair, and they put her in, like, a Xena dress. But then they cover it again, because Johnny Cage looks over and says, "Nice dress," and she gets to roll her eyes, and I was like, brilliant, you've clocked it, and clocked that it's stupid as well. So I'm, like, perfectly fine with this happening. You know, she wasn't having to, like, she didn't get thrown around, she didn't get hit about, she didn't have to, like, do anything stupid in that dress. The minute she leaves, she's wearing, like, a big old cloak to cover it up. And I was just like, yes, perfect, brilliant. Like, because all it's done is added a horrible trait to the villain. It's not taken anything away from her and her power within the film. So I was really impressed.
Yeah, and I think that they do a really good job with her sort of character arc throughout the film. I mean, she's always seen, when they have the big fight scene, she's always shown holding her own. And when it gets to her being kidnapped, it's only basically because Shang Tsung needs to have this one victory. And out of the three, he basically puts his odds on that he could beat her. That he, you know, because Johnny Cage has basically beaten Goro, his top guy. Liu Kang, he knows he can't beat because he's basically been training for this. So he puts all his odds on the fact, you know, maybe I can beat this person who's sort of like not supposed to be here. Yeah. So that's the way I always saw it, but it never made sense, like, how she has this complete costume change in the time that he, like, kidnaps her. It's all like, you had all this time to, like, give her, like, a makeover and change her outfit and stuff. It's all like, surely you, like, kidnap her, get the fight done, and, like, then get on with your invasion plans, not, well, maybe if I put you in this outfit. It's sort of like...
Yeah, then it'll be even more. But then again, you can sort of fill in the gaps where, because we don't have a gratuitous scene where he throws the dress at her and says, "I'd like you to wear this for our final confrontation." You know, there's none of that. She's just there, she's wearing it, and you're like, ew, and they go, ew, and she's like, I know, right? And I'm like, fine, done, brilliant, you nailed it again. But then you're filling in the gaps by having it more about the villain, and it's like, oh, he's probably clicked his fingers and changed her outfit like Sabrina, and, you know, because he just wanted to, like, humiliate her further or whatever.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I'm so glad that they didn't fall into so many traps that, like, even good movies like Pirates of the Caribbean fall into.
Yeah, I love the fact that you bring up Sabrina, because obviously Shang Tsung, played by Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa, would turn up in Sabrina as well, playing a martial artist.
No way.
The episode where she used her magic to
amazing.
become a martial artist. He's the top guy.
I knew I recognized him! Oh my god! I was like, oh my god, I've seen that person recently. Who is he? And I had no idea, because I've just binge-watched the entire first season of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and that's where I know him from. That is incredible.
He's awesome.
He's
just awesome.
So glad you said that.
He's also not Chinese. He's from Hawaii. But in that classic wrestling trait, you can be from Samoa and play Japanese people, or you can be from Hawaii and adamantly play Chinese or Japanese people. So, but no, he really nailed what this character's supposed to be. You know, this sadistic and egotistic sorcerer who's basically got a sideline stealing the souls of fallen fighters, and he's just this wonderful antagonist. And I mean, they've recently brought him back to do voice work for the new Mortal Kombat game, because the fans, again, they love him so much. They just sort of like, you are now the voice of Shang Tsung. So
good for him. He's a brilliant villain. He's like not too much. He easily could have gone, because I'm hands me out, I am a big fan of the Dungeons and Dragons movies, and this was really reminiscent of them. And obviously Jeremy Irons' performance in the first Dungeons and Dragons movie is iconic for many reasons, none of which are good. And he never did that. He never went too far with this villain. He easily could have gone way over the top, but it felt like he respected the movie and the environment and the atmosphere, and he played perfectly within that. He didn't try and branch out and go too big, and he didn't underplay it either. He was like right on the mark for how that villain needed to be.
Yeah, definitely so. And I love the fact that when it comes to Chinese sorcerers, they can be capable fighters, because if we look at Dungeons and Dragons, if you use magic, then you're normally a weaker and you're normally a frail old man, and very few characters who use magic have the same sort of strength of, like, the warrior classes. So if you look at Chinese sorcerers, they're more than capable of holding their own. They just use magic as this handy cheat if they need to, which obviously is his case. I mean, it's a real sort of cheap tactic just to turn into your opponent's brother and go, oh, you aren't going to kill me, I'm your brother.
Yeah, it's so Pennywise, isn't it? I was like, boo!
But when we have that final sort of fight scene, and we got the spikes coming up, because when back in the 90s, you're going into this as the fans of the movie, and you like seeing all your favorite characters on screen. It's all great, and it's all like, we really want to see the pit. And then it gets to the end, and the spikes come up, and it's all like, the pit was there the whole time, and it was just a real sort of fanboy moment to finally see the pit, like, and it is just magically appearing out of the ground.
That's so cool. It was really fun. Again, like, I love that they take us to this other random place, and they're able to do it so easily and well, again, because we get this banter of like, oh great, where the fuck are we now? This place sucks, why are we here, kind of thing. And you're like, yeah, it looks like a hell dimension, not gonna lie, you might want to get out of there ASAP. And then, for the pit to sort of move around, all these random monks coming in, like, for no apparent reason. And then he's like, leave us! And they're like, okay. We did all just spend, like, 5 minutes coming in, but...
Well, we have that wonderful bird's eye view, or the God view, which is one of Anderson's trademarks, much like having... scenes like mirror each other, like you can put like a mirror between a lot of the sets, and you see it like in the banquet sequence where everything's identical on both sides, and these little quirks that now are so standard for his film just sort of like making their first appearance in this film, like his use of lighting. And just him with Sonya really was like the first of his tough girl characters. I mean, obviously he managed to make a nice career for his now wife, playing Alice, who now iconic female character. So but there's
I was really surprised.
There's just so many elements of this film I love. There's like not a character in it I don't wish wasn't there. Like, it just satisfies so many different elements. Like, you've got like Scorpion and Sub-Zero, the yellow and blue ninja, and it's sort of like, when you have Scorpion in the wood, like in the game, it's just like a rope spear he throws, but in the film, it's this living entity that comes out of his hand.
So creepy.
And the fact that they got Ed Boon, who's like one of the creators of the game and voices Scorpion, just to do his "get over here" line. And I think if they got like the actor to do it, and it hadn't been that sort of deep voice that we've become so iconic with this character, I think that it would have not gone over as well. And I mean, the whole Scorpion Johnny Cage fight scene was added after the production was done, because the test screenings like wanted more fighting, so they basically went out and shot this, and now everybody loves this scene. It's sort of like this weird scene that like goes off to a hell dimension at the end of it for no apparent reason.
Yeah, it did feel very tacked on, but I was like, I don't care, I'm having a great time. Like, this makes no sense whatsoever, but it's great.
Yeah.
I really love that, the way he's like so gymnastic-y get like lifting up from the different platforms. Then he turns him into Ghost Rider, and then he explodes, and there's like skulls everywhere. I was like, fucking, this is brilliant. This is so good.
Oh, not to mention like the Johnny Cage like to my biggest fan photo payoff at the end.
Yeah.
So, like, fatality.
That's it. That's what I was gonna say. I loved the like. What is it? There's so many catchphrases. It's like flawless.
Oh,
kill.
Yeah. Well, you have flawless, or just flawless victory, and then you've got like
That's
double
it.
flawless, and obviously when you get into fatality, it's the legendary now finish him. And then
finish him.
from there you can obviously go a number of directions. You can do like babality or friendship, or you can do fatalities or brutalities. As the games have gone on, they've added more and more ways to like mess with your opponent. Like the idea of a friendship that, you know, you've fought this bloody battle and this guy like suddenly produces like a rainbow, or like Sub-Zero makes you an ice cream or something. It's like, what? It's almost like this rubbing salt in the wound. It's like, oh yeah, I could beat you, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah. But I'm not going to. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I've played Mortal Kombat in my time. I've button mashed whilst Mortal Kombat was on the screen. I believe that is the most effective way to play that
That's
game.
how most of us play it. We just like to think we know what we're doing.
Good, I'm glad. I was worried you were going to be like, I think you'll find. Yeah, no, I would just be like, which one's the kick button? Just like that. So it was always really fun, and this had a really fun mixture of like, we're trying to do a movie that's kind of working, but we're also including these like well-known catchphrases and stuff. I read in the IMDb trivia that they kept trying to get the soundtrack produced through all these different music makers, and everyone was like, fuck off, go away. And they finally got to this like little indie bit, and they were like, sure, we'll do your like retro dance music soundtrack, which immediately goes to like number 1, and it's so good. These like techno like dance music hits in every time they start fighting, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm having a great time.
Oh yeah, there's just so much. It's, as we said before, this film is just like fun throughout. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it knows what it wants to be. And back when this film came out, like Tom Cruise was like filming in the hangar next door and had to wander over to say hi, and the film crew basically chased him off. Steven Spielberg was going to have a cameo as Johnny Cage's director at the beginning, but scheduling unfortunately didn't work out. So
yeah, that's such a shame.
It's but
that guy kind of looked like him.
Yeah, I mean, back when they were like optioning this as a producer, it took them like about 6 months to get the game producers to like sign off and, you know, on the rights to it, because they thought, you know, this isn't going to make a good movie. This is a weird Kung Fu homage game that, you know, nobody's going to want to see a movie of this. But yeah, basically they saw they saw what they were doing with this, and just saw these characters and like, you know, we could really make something of it. And I'm so glad that they really, with this film, they sort of nailed it. But like every film which followed, they just went horribly wrong with. Like Annihilation was horrible, and it's there's been some hits with it, like the late night TV series Conquest did some really good stuff. It gave it like the Xena edge, where everyone has like leather outfits and fantastic cleavage. So if you're a young boy in the 90s, it was sort of like, wow, this is a great show.
I'm watching this for the plot.
Yeah.
The plot is cleavages.
And I think the other sort of thing which gives it real sort of credibility is the fact that Robin Shou was cast as Liu Kang, and he'd done a lot of sort of like martial arts movies and stuff, and he was like really big on shooting everything in sort of like a Hong Kong way. So he was encouraging like Lyndon Ashby to like take hits when they were doing fight scenes to make it look more realistic, and like Lyndon Ashby for whatever reason was taught into this, like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And he was like, by day 2 he's like hobbling back to his trailers going, why the hell did I agree to shoot like this?
Yeah, like, ow.
But yeah, he bruised his kidney with the with the fight scene with Scorpion, and I mean, all the actors, I mean, like both him and Bridget Wilson, they were doing their own fight scenes, they're doing their own stunt work, and it really sort of pays off. But you can tell the actors who can fight because they're shot at a long open lens, where those who perhaps don't have the sort of fighting chops are shot in a more close up. And I think that's always you can tell when you can tell if somebody knows their stuff. Like you look at the John Wick movies, and Keanu, who's like there from like day one with the stuntmen, and spends all these like hours and hours doing like stunt fighting work with them. And this is why they shoot him on such a long lens, just because they know they can shoot him from any angle and it's going to look great. It's not like they're going to have to bring it in. And I mean, even with those movies, there's like when we look at like Mark Dacos, who could turn up as the sushi chef in Part 3, and I remember my friends going, "Why is the Iron Chef in this?" And I was like, "What are you talking about, the Iron Chef?" And it was like, "This is Mark Dacos. He's like renowned martial artist. He's in Crime Freeman and Drive and all these movies that you probably have not watched." So I was really excited to see him, and then you could tell like the people Keanu brings into these movies, just what like as I said with the guys who made this movie, what sort of like fans of like martial arts cinema they are, just like the people he chooses to work with. A lot of them are like real sort of deep cuts. They know what they're doing. Like he has like the guys from The Raid, and it's like, wow, that's a real deep cut.
Oh wow, good find. Yeah, that's so cool. It really does make a difference that, as you say, even though you can tell they're not particularly trained, they're still doing it, and I think that really adds an enjoyment level to it for sure. It really felt influential as a movie. I don't know how influential it is, but it feels like this movie walked so things like Guardians of the Galaxy could run. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just feels like a lot of people watched Mortal Kombat in the 90s and then went on to make their own movies.
I think with Mortal Kombat, it
had it in the back of their head, you know.
It's that VHS sort of era in where it sort of like came out and critics hate it, but it like goes on to do like huge business on VHS. And as I said, it was like the sleepover movie of choice. So of course, like you go to the video store and it's like, we're gonna rent Mortal Kombat, like we're done.
Yeah.
So
night finished.
Yeah, it was sort of like the quickest like trip to the video store ever, because normally if it was anything like myself, you go to the video store and you're like there for hours and you're just like, come on,
hours going from A to Z.
Yeah, just like looking at all those wonderful covers, especially in the horror section where you would never rent anything, but you get your kicks just looking at the backs and going, oh, look at this one.
Yeah. Look at that poster. But no, I can totally. It's sort of similar to like the Mummy movies, just really fun. You can stick it in the background. You can pay attention to it. Either way, you're going to have a great time. It's a visual treat, and I can see why the sequels might not have worked. I think this was quite lightning in a bottle, where because they allowed elements of comedy that weren't perhaps in the original script, and because they had everyone doing their own stunts, and because they had these brilliant sets and the clever use of lighting. It is clever, like I don't want to deny that at all, but it is also just like a really interesting use of lighting. Just like they easily could have had that scene with completely normal bedroom lighting, but they made it all like green or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, that's cool. I now remember that because it was visually interesting and different. And if they didn't do that in the later ones, then I could see where they would flop.
Yeah, and it's so straight to the point that you could like go into this film not knowing anything about the film, the game, or these characters, and you can like instantly. It just brings you in and like introduce everything, but not in like a condescending way that's like annoying if you're a fan. Where I mean, these video game movies are notoriously difficult because these are like paper thin characters at the end of the day. As much as the experience we put onto them, they're very sort of basic outlines of like, oh, this is Scorpion, he's an undead ninja. This is Sub-Zero, he's an ice ninja. We haven't just color swapped him because it's easy. This is Reptile, he's a lizard ninja. No, we have not just color swapped him the same way we would do like 8 other times in this game. Which, again, it's one of those things you can tell as a Mortal Kombat fan when, like, in our current climate, and it's sort of like people complain about wearing masks, and it's like you can tell the Mortal Kombat fans, it's like, who doesn't want to go to the supermarket and pretend to be Scorpion? It's like, or Melina or Katana, like they just for them it's like nothing better could have happened than the world being forced to wear face masks.
Yeah, that's such a good point. They've made it's back on trend.
Yes, exactly.
So good.
But no, in the terms of like the plotting, it's so, it's just click, 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 click. Like, we got the opening sort of fight scene where we see Lou's brother getting killed, and then it's snapped to him in the bedroom, and he gets the telegram, and it's like, your brother's dead. And then it's like, yes, we know why he's going to this place. And it's like, everything's like these quick bursts of information. It's not like, I've got to go to this thing, and I've got to talk to this person, and that. It's like, no, we know why we're here. We just need enough information to get us to the next part. And I think... Literally.
And yeah, it's such a testament. It's just straight to the point. Like, brevity is the soul of wit. There's no boring, prolonged scenes. Just boom, boom, boom. What we doing?
Yes. And I think, again, by having this set in a tournament fighting setting, you can introduce characters really quick. And then you can dispose of them real quick, just as quick.
Yeah.
Like we can have all these like fighters from Earthrealm, but we can like get rid of them all in 5 seconds if we need to, because they're now out of the tournament, and we can just keep it focused on these guys. So we can create a lot of depth very easily and create a lot of action very easily. But at the same time, we don't have to put a lot of emphasis on explaining who all these bit players are, because they're just there to pad out what's happening.
Yeah, and to make it sort of make sense of it. No, it's so good. It's so well done. Like, it really is. I loved the ending. I think if we briefly just mention that Princess Katana is a character in this movie, and that's about as far as that explanation goes. But I love that they don't really hook up at the end. No one. There's implications that it's like, it's a pair and a pair.
Yeah.
But there's no sort of like, now will you marry me kind of thing. It actually ends with like the Power Rangers villain coming out of the temple, and they're like, let's go to work, lads. And then it cuts to credits, and you're like, hey, so good.
Yes, that wonderful ending where we get to see the Emperor, and then we get onto Annihilation, and it picks up exactly where the first film ends.
Does it?
It does.
Oh, that's kind of disappointing. Like, when they tried to do that with Incredibles 2, I never needed to see them fight the Mole Man.
Yeah.
Because their story was done. And in this sense, I was like, I'm really glad that we got to see the Emperor, because he's been talked about this whole time. And I thought the Emperor... Honestly, the, like, temple was rumbling, and out loud I was like, ooh, be the dragon, be a dragon, be a dragon. Because I thought it was going to be the, like, dragon from the logo. And then it was, like, this weird, like, rock biter from the Neverending Story with, like, a fun hat on. I was like, that's just as cool. Like, I'm really enjoying that visually. And then they, like, line up like they're on the front page of the Animorphs, and they, like, all bring their fists up, and then it, like, cuts to credits. And I was like, perfect. I got to see the Emperor. I know they're going to kick his ass. I don't need to see it happen. This is a perfect movie.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, obviously we end with Elwood, Emperor Shao Kahn, the big guy, basically Shang Tsung's boss. And it's kind of disappointing when he obviously turns up in Annihilation. But I think Annihilation generally was just a big disappointment. There's a lot of misfire ideas there, and it was let down by some hokey CGI, even hokier writing, and it also suffered the same fate as Street Fighter, where it was basically like, oh, we've got all these characters that we want to now cram in. It doesn't show the same sort of restraint we see here, where we have like a small group of characters. It just basically tried to shove in like every man and his dog into this film, and it just, as I said, it's just a horrible film that was tainted until we saw, until we had like the fan film Mortal Kombat, I want to say Legacy, which is directed by the same guy who gave us the Fame remake.
Oh, no way.
Yes, he also did the Pink Ranger movie, which really annoyed the guys at Saban who tried to sue him. But yeah, it went into like its own like Mortal Kombat web series where they were trying to give a real world twist on the Mortal Kombat franchise, and it was a really interesting fan film. The idea where they're going, where you had like Reptile, who's like basically like this circus freak who's got this skin condition, and you had like you had basically Scorpion, who was going to go into this underground fighting contest as like the representative of Earthrealm, and he was just like this hired assassin guy, and it was still a really interesting short. And then the web series itself was really interesting, even though it ultimately went back to the more fantastical elements. And you had like Raiden, who's in a mental asylum because nobody believes he's a Chinese thunder god.
Oh my god!
I'll send it over to you, and you can enjoy that.
Yeah.
Now we've all got nothing but time on our hands, so.
I mean, I'm looking here on IMDb. There's so many. There's so many Mortal Kombats, and it. You know, I'm not even surprised. It's a cute little idea that kind of springs off millions of other ideas if you're in the right frame of mind. And I think it's a good source material. That, I mean, isn't there a new one coming out this year?
Yes, there's a new one.
I typed in Mortal Kombat and it was like 2020, and I was like,
wow.
Wait, what?
We'll wait to see if that happens. It's
or 2021 even.
So, but yeah, there's a new one coming out. Certainly the casting and everything seems to be lining up. Again, you've got a lot of actual proper martial artists who are involved in the production, so that makes us hopeful. And I just I think even if it's not bad, I think this film is sort of very secure in its place in the fandom, that it's its own thing. Even when you look at the games, even though you have like several years of just really bad entries, just that you have that one good entry and it's sort of like everything's right with the world again. Because you had that sort of like golden period from like Mortal Kombat 1 to 3, and then it goes into that horrible 3D realm, and finally by the time we get to Mortal Kombat X, that, you know, everything seems right with the world, and it's now just like back to what it was, this perfect sort of fighting game.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, that's all my notes. Anything else you want to say about it?
I'm just sort of like going, just having a look for it, because I think, as I said, we've covered a lot of it. Certainly in terms of like the censorship for this film, the studio decided they wanted to make it PG-13. So when you're dealing with an 18 rated game, that's kind of difficult, because Mortal Kombat is all about, you know, blood and violence. That was its thing. I mean, this is a game where you can uppercut a guy and tear his head and spinal cord out if you wanted. It's like, how do you transfer that into a movie that's both marketable from the studio standpoint? Because I'm sure you can make it like exactly the same as the game, and the fanboys and girls would absolutely love it. Because, you know, 90s kids were all little bloodthirsty demons like that, so.
It's so true. Honestly, it opened with that sort of fight, and I was like, this must have scratched so many itches of like kids in the 90s that were like, yeah, violence. But like, it's still good for small kids. You're absolutely right. I didn't even clock that the game would of course be an 18. In my head I was like, the game's for everyone, it's just a fun little game. Like, you know, you just do a couple of kicks and a couple of punches. But then I remember reading an article a couple years back when they brought out a new one, and as you say, it was like, and then they rip out your spinal cord.
Oh, they've got worse now.
Or the parents are like, wait, what?
It's like when I look at like what we had in like the original game, and it looks so timid now compared to some of the things we have in like the new game, where they're just like reducing people into like small bloody bits, and you have...
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm remembering, the sort of almost innocence of just a punch and a kick. So then when the movie was a 15, I was like, that makes complete sense, because you're able to make it rough enough to like be a bit edgy.
Well,
but
this is the thing with the censors. They have no qualms if you're doing it supernatural being, or if it's a supernatural death. So they're fine with those elements. So you can have like Sub-Zero.
So weird, isn't it?
Be like frozen.
We can have him rip his face off.
Yeah, because he's a supernatural being.
Slice the skull in half, set it on fire and explode, and that's totally fine because it's like vaguely supernatural.
Yeah, and these are like the ways
So
that
bizarre.
Anderson got like fatality. It's like Sub-Zero has like the icicle through the chest, and it's like, well, that's just a fatality. yeah, that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And other things you just like, you give the audience enough of a taste. So like when he falls down onto the spikes, we cut away at the last minute and then we see his reaction. But in our mind, we've seen like the spike go through him. So we've seen it being impaled.
Yeah.
So we don't feel like we've been cheated as the audience because we've seen like a guy knocked into the pit. We didn't need to see like Running Man style or like the big spike coming through him or anything like that. And this again, I think this is why it was so popular with like as the sleeper movie choice. I mean, it's scratching that itch for like violence and gore, but at the same time having that sort of safety net. And it's the same way you would watch like you would rent like Schwarzenegger movies or like Steven Seagal movies and stuff. Like I remember like having sleepovers and you watch like Under Siege, and it's sort of like it's like Steven Seagal, you're so cool, you're like a chef and you can do kung fu and weld 2 machine guns, and it's like all this sort of like sort of violence because it's on this sort of like safe sort of level, the same way that like you see Arnie in Commando and he's like gunning down hundreds of people, but it's in this safe way because he does that James Bond thing where he does like a horrible act of violence and then it has like a funny one-liner and it disables that act of violence. So there's always ways to get around violence yet still be satisfying. Whereas I think modern filmmakers now, they just try to play it too safe. They try to have things off screen or don't give us enough of a taste to really sort of satisfy
They're too scared. Or they go the complete opposite direction where they are like, and now we're going to rip his face off. And you're like, I mean, it's not even that I'm squeamish. It's just that added nothing other than like, you were like, what can I do with my computer? And it's like, yeah, congratulations. You went to like graphic school or whatever.
It's but the same thing. I watch movies like The Raid and I see like the new John Wicks and it's sort of like, wow, this is intense even for like myself as like a martial arts fan. You see like the guys in like The Raid who are doing Salat, which is a fighting style based around elbows, knees and knives.
Yeah, The Raid. I really enjoyed The Raid. I've never seen a John Wick movie.
Have you not?
M from Verbal Diorama has sort of introduced Keanu in a big way into
she
my
is
life.
Such a delight.
I'm sure it's her sort of mission.
You should watch the John Wick movies, definitely.
Beautifully.
If you like this, then
sure.
I think you'd like the John Wick movies. And he also did a movie called I want to say The Man from Tai Chi, which is like one of his sole directing credits, where he also plays a villain, which is very out of character for him.
Oh wow!
But, it's a similar sort of setup to this. And if you want to see like the futuristic version, there's a movie from a few years previously called Arena, which is basically Mortal Kombat but in space.
Oh my god! In space.
But again, it's all practical effects. So you've got like humanoid guys fighting like big guys in like huge makeup get-ups and stuff. So.
That's what I want. That's what I want to see. I want more Gamorks and less Krakens.
Yes.
2020. 2021.
We'll sort you out care package. We'll put some stuff together and just like it's like this is what you need
Kung
to
Fu Care.
Yeah, Kung Fu Care, exactly.
I love it. I look forward to it. This was genuinely so much fun, and I'm genuinely going to be revisiting it with so much alcohol. So much alcohol. Like, I literally messaged my friends being like, the movie pauses, almost looks to the camera to give you time to be like, sarcastic comment, clink, chug, and then it carries on. It's like made for a drinking game. The amount of times they say Mortal Kombat, the amount of times they say finish him. I was starting to take sips with my water every time someone was like Mortal Kombat, and I was like, oh, drink. Like, it's just so naturally set up for a drinking game. I'm sure millions of people across the world have done drinking games this movie. I will not, of course, not be the first, but I'm very excited to join them in this endeavour. So thank you so much. I'm so glad that you chose it as your movie. It was so fun.
I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. I mean, when we were talking about like a movie from childhood, it's like so many of my movies that I grew up with are now like deleted titles, like Fly to Dragons, or it's sort of like, do I really want to subject it to my Godzilla nerdy ramblings and talk about like
I did say. Yeah, the when you were like, any Godzilla movie, I was like, pass.
No, Godzilla is just a wonderful thing that you can carry through life with you, and it only gets better. And you can totally justify that like 150 you spent on the Criterion collection that now doesn't fit on the shelf because some bright spark at Criterion thought, let's make it bigger than a book. This huge thing you've now got to lay on its side.
Amazing. Well, maybe you'll have to like introduce me to the world of Godzilla.
I think that's what we
We'll
do.
do a whole Godzilla episode where we break it down. The Flight of Dragons, is that the Rankin and Bass? Is that an animated?
It's an animated movie where you've basically got that, you know, Dungeons and Dragons sort of setup where this guy gets brought in from like the real world through the board game and turned into a dragon. And
oh my god, we're gonna have to find that.
It's out there. I think you can get it on what I would consider an overpriced DVD, but I think you can get it through Amazon.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say like you could probably get it for like £23.
Yeah,
or something.
it's sort of like
just a little bit too much because it's like sort of out of print.
So yeah, I think that's one that's it's well worth a re-release, or just to turn up randomly on Amazon Prime, because Amazon Prime, for whatever reason, has turned into like the greatest video store with some of the titles they have on there. It's like they stopped caring and just put like anything that we can get our hands on, we just upload. And
now I get super angry when I can't find something on Amazon Prime. I'm like, what do you mean it's not on Amazon Prime? It can't exist if it's not on Amazon Prime.
It's a shame the algorithm for Amazon Prime is so broken that you have to basically do a deep dive. You have to like find that one title and then just go through the recommendations and just keep diving further. Like you type in like Nam Angels, which is like a bikers in Vietnam movie, and you just like go through there. You like go off to all these different like hidden movies that are in there. So it's a shame they don't go out of their way to sort of advertise the fact they're there, but if you type in the right words, occasionally you can stumble across something fun. Especially because, I mean, at the moment we're obviously recording this, I'm in the midst of like the 31 Days of Halloween, and thanks to Amazon, I watched God Monster: The Indian Flats, which is a giant mutant sheep movie that they had on there. But I've noticed now they're actually charging for it, so I think you're a real sucker if you're paying for that, because I was offended getting it through Prime for free. So
yeah.
But like all these things, you know, if you get creative, you can always find what you need on the internet. So
yes, thank God for the internet. What would we do without you? Speaking of the internet, where can we find you on the internet and your
my various
endeavors?
Well, obviously my main blog is From the Depths of DVD Hell, which you can find at fromthedepthsofdvdhell.wordpress.com. I've just recently transferred over from Blogger after 10 years over there, and I'm also in the process of getting everything put up on Letterboxd, which again is just the greatest hangout if you're a movie fan. Once you start following the right people, it just becomes like a delight to go on there every day and see what everyone's watching. In terms of podcasting, though, you can obviously find me on Ace and Cinema Film Club, which is I do with my co-host Stephen, the Professor, where every couple of weeks we take it in turns to pick a film and discuss it, and it's been real fun because obviously he comes from a background of like classy fare, as I like to say, because he worked over at Eastern Kicks, and my fare is more like video store, like sort of like the cult and obscure, like anime and kung fu movies and stuff. So we have a real good blend, and every Christmas we celebrate Kaiju Christmas, where I force him to watch a kaiju movie. So we've done a couple of Godzilla movies, and this year we're doing Pogosara, which is a Korean monster movie directed by the dictator Kim Jong-un, who he kidnapped the director and his wife to force him to make movies for him in North Korea. And there's a really fascinating book called The Despot and the Director, I think it's called, but I will find you the link and send it over to you.
God.
But our next film we're talking about is A Penguin's Tale, which was originally an animated feature created for Suntory Whiskey, whose mascot is a penguin. It looks kind of like the Club Penguins. Aww. But for some reason that translated as, let's make The Deer Hunter with penguins. So it's about this penguin coming back from Vietnam and having like flashbacks to the war.
Oh my god!
So,
what's a penguin doing in Vietnam?
All the characters are all penguins. So all your characters are penguins. So, and that's a movie that's in the public domain.
That sounds incredible.
So, and my other
move aside, Happy Feet.
Indeed. It's like Princess Mononoke, where Disney didn't quite know what they were getting when they signed on.
I'm so glad that they didn't, because we got so much good shit because they kind of fucked up with Princess Mononoke. They're like, animation, excellent.
Yeah.
Children, right?
And
then it like opens with his arm getting ripped off by a demon boar, and you're like, yeah!
But yeah, Miyazaki really knew how to play that, because when with Nautical Valley of the Wind, they tried to edit it, they edited it and did a horrible job, so he sent them over a samurai sword with a note attached saying no cuts. So Disney...
Possibly the best little tidbit of information from cinema ever. Like, what a badass.
But yeah...
No cuts, Harvey Weinstein.
To Disney, they can redub their movies and put, like, the celebrity voice actors in and whatnot, but they can't edit anything out of their movies. That's the contract that they have.
Yeah. I love it.
But my other show is Movies and Tea, which I host with the lovely Kim Lowe, and each season we break down a different director's filmography, and so far we've done Paul W. Anderson, so a lot of Resident Evil movies. We did Sofia Coppola, Guillermo del Toro, Ang Lee, and we're currently in our David Fincher season.
Ooh,
and then
that's long. That must be long.
It's not too bad. I mean, these seasons are all about 8 episodes apiece, so it's with Finch.
All of his movies are like 4 hours too long.
But Finch is such a delight. I mean, he did the greatest movie of the last decade with The Social Network, a movie that should have been a TV movie at best, but it's like in the hands of Fincher, it's this wonderful masterpiece of cinema.
That's fair. I think I was watching a lot of Fincher when I was too young, because he's Fight Club, right?
Yes.
And then he did Zodiac.
Yeah, and he did The Game.
Yeah, see, we watched Zodiac at a sleepover, and
that's
it is,
heavy.
Unlike Mortal Kombat,
that's really heavy.
Not a sleepover movie. And I was like, fuck this guy.
I would say for like your sleepover movie for Fincher, Fight 7 is your one that we all used to watch.
Yeah, that's fair. I watched that when I was too young as well, and I was like, I hate this man. He's trying to frighten the shit out of me. And it's like, maybe you shouldn't watch it when you're 13.
No.
Oh.
But no, we watching like The Game, and I just forgot how good that movie is, and I was sort of like, for the next 2 weeks, it was like everyone, like all my film friends and stuff, it's like, have you rewatched The Game recently? You have to go watch The Game again. It's like Michael Douglas's best movie. It's like...
Amazing.
But yeah, I mean, that's my two main sort of like outlets amongst my many other random projects. I mean, we put together like a 1001 film introduction to cult and obscure cinema called the Mad Bad and Damn It Strange list, and I don't know what it is. I just like to keep busy, and podcasting provides this wonderful outlet to meet and chat with film people. About films the way that I like to talk about films, just get like we've done tonight, just get really down into the guts of the things and
get deep into it, and not have someone be like, I mean, yeah, it was fine, and you're like, but we need to talk about the themes and how they played in well with the choices of, and they're like, nah, it was fine.
It's like when you're at work and someone says, oh, I'm a film fan, and you're like, oh, good. It's like, I will crawl across broken glass for you, friendship. And they're like, yeah, I watched The Watch. And you're like, no, we are very different people. you go sit over there.
Yeah, and there's nothing ever wrong with, what you find enjoyable.
No.
And like, And, like, we're not ever trying to be snobby, and I think it's more that, like, we know the level in which we enjoy talking about things isn't the normal level, but we're very lucky in that we do have the internet, as you say, and we can be connected with people that aren't bored when we go off on one.
Yeah,
talking about choices and lighting.
Not everybody wants to know about your theory about why Doug McClure is the greatest Saturday morning afternoon. I mean, The Simpsons recognised it with Troy McClure. That's where that comes from. But yes,
oh my god,
Doug McClure is my Saturday morning matinee hero. And did like the Earth's Core and Warlords of Atlantis and like Humanoids in the Deep and Cannibal Run 2. And I just, he's like Brian Trenchard Smith. If there's a movie of his that comes up that I haven't seen, I will strive to like rush out and watch it. But he's
nice.
He's I liked him. He was, like, as I said, he had that Kirk vibe of, you know, seducing exotic women and solving problems by punching them.
Kirk vibe, I love that. I'm going to use that. Sums it up perfectly. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. This was such a joy. As I say, I really, really, really enjoyed the movie, so thank you so much. I hope you had a good time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This has been a delight, and I hope that there's people just like not wondering why they're tuning into just two people just like geeking out for like over an hour about this bloody Mortal Kombat movie. So I really feel like there's gonna be a lot of people that enjoy this movie out there, so I really hope they find this episode and I hope so. You know, if you do find this episode and you're new to this podcast or you're new to either of us, then like let us know. Email in whythisfilmpodcast@gmail.com or find us across social media and tell us what you thought of Mortal Kombat. Do you agree with us? Was it sexist? Am I stupid? Was it not sexist? Am I right? Tell me. Tell us. Let us know. Join the conversation. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And we'll see you next time on Why This Film. Bye!
So I've been asked to do some promo for these two lads, Ryan and Paul, for their podcast, Cold Callers Comedy. Quite honestly, I've never listened to it because it sounds like shit. But what I can tell you is that my show, Ardy's Hardest Acts, is one of the segments, and that is an absolute peaky blinder you can't miss out on.
Whoa, what the hell, Tom?
You meant to promote our show, not slag it off. I couldn't care less, mate.
Well, you should. You're on the podcast.
Yeah, how about a little gratitude? Bane, show 'em how grateful we are.
Your precious podcast. Gratefully accepted.
We're not giving it to you.
Admirable. What a mistake.
So yeah, listen to my show Cold Callers Comedy on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon and all the other podcast platforms.
The podcast rises. Come here.